Hi, welcome to our 2022 Executive Functions Summit. Today we are meeting with Eric Jorgensen. He is the founder of True North Disability Planning, the go-to resource for families who have children with intellectual disability, developmental disabilities, and the professionals who serve them. He is the host of ABCs of Disability Planning, which is a podcast that introduces its listeners to organizations and resources that they may have never heard of or weren't sure how to use. And he's the author of Waypoints, a monthly deep dive into disability planning topics. He was widowed in 2012, the same year he retired from the Navy. Eric knows firsthand how challenging it can be to navigate the maze of benefits, resources, and services available to those with intellectual and or developmental disabilities because he has a son who has both. In the beginning, Eric looked for someone who could tell him what to do when he had to have it done by and how to get it done. But it didn't seem like this person or this company even existed. So he did what many people are doing. He did his best to make it work with what he had available to him. Beating cancer in 2020 was the last straw, pushing him to incorporate his business and change the disability planning landscape. So welcome to the show, Eric. Thank you so much for being on our summit.
Thank you, Fazia. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so is there anything that you would like to share about you, yourself, your family, your job, your business before we get started on some questions? And for those of you who obviously didn't see us prior, we were having a nice conversation, and so we were already kind of giddy and laughing. So
yeah, it's for the listeners out there. My son's going to be 23 this year, and as many of those who are participating have experienced, puberty and growing into adulthood can bring challenges. So my son started off, when he left high school, we were going to do self-directed, and that was going to be the Mecca, the promised land, and everything was going to work great. And it hasn't. Surprise, surprise. So I want people that are watching to know when they hit the roadblocks or the hiccups, that it's not time to throw your hands up and say, I give up. It's just, too hard. But, like you and I were talking ahead of time, to rather look at it and go, it could be worse. The bottom line is we live in a country that has some of the best resources in the world, regardless of what state we live in. If you look at some of the other countries and what families are experiencing, we don't have it that bad. I'm not making light of anybody's experience or personal situation. I just want to give hope, right? And I have to remind myself this sometimes when I start having the pity party of, why does life have to be so hard? So that's just what I would like to start, and leave people with, as we go through this, and as I go through the rest of the summit, just take into account, no matter how hard you have it, and I'm not gonna make light or say that you don't have it, that things aren't difficult. I want you to understand you're in a place and with resources that can help you get out of that. I mean, you're a great example with what you're doing, Fazia. We were talking ahead of time of how you make yourself accessible with the pricing and everything else, because you're here to serve people. You're not here to serve as few as possible. Right. And I believe, to the core of my being, there's other professionals like you, out there.
And I think there's many professionals who go into service. Serving others is usually a labor of love. It's because I love what I'm doing, or I love who I'm serving, or something to that effect. So I think it does make a difference if that's, the direction you want to go. So let's go ahead and dive right into some of your questions. So what can parents of children with intellectual and or developmental disabilities expect when their child graduates or ages out of high school? And let's talk a little bit about what it means to age out of high school also.
So I'll start with the second part, what it means to age out. When your child has a disability, They don't have to stay in, they don't have to graduate at 18. Uh, the Now, I'm not an education advocate or an education expert by any means. It's my understanding that when you have a developmental disability and it's identified in the IP and it's coded correctly, and again, this isn't my area of expertise, but your child can stay in school until 21, 22, or 26 in Michigan. And that when they leave school, they're getting a certificate which will convey all of the same benefits as a diploma does, meaning they can go to college, they can get a job. It shouldn't keep them from having in air quotes, normal life. It's there to help them meet the academic standards. And for those of them who are not in a traditional diploma path, perhaps they're like my son was, they're learning more functional skills, functional math. How do you measure food when you're cooking? How do you do laundry? Some of the more basic life skills. That's what it means to age out of a program. And what parents can expect is nothing to be easy, not to be flippant, but in high school, in elementary and middle school, all of those services are entitlements. You are supposed to have a fair and appropriate public education, and that is supposed to be paid for by the state. Once you leave high school and you enter adult services, there are no guarantees anymore. It really comes down to, does your child meet the state's requirements to receive services under their Medicaid waiver? In some states, that means they have to have an IQ below 70 to meet the definition, just one of the definitions of an intellectual disability. I'm not going to go into all the definitions, but there are states that if you don't have an IQ of 69 or lower, you're not going to qualify for any services. There are states that if you have a diagnosis of autism, you may get services. And it's important that you know what your state's requirements are and what waivers are out there to provide them. And then it's also important to know, what is your child going to do for work and where are they going to live? It's not an automatic assumption they're going to go live on their own when you have a child. Like my son has a disability. It's not automatically assumed, nor should it be, that he's just going to be, just like they're on their own. Great. Good luck,
And that was going to be my next question. What do parents need to do to help their teens transition into adulthood?
There's a lot. Hopefully before they're a teenager, they've already applied for a Medicaid waiver. I really want parents to apply for the Medicaid waiver as soon as they get that diagnosis. And if they don't know how to apply or where to apply, that's what I built the roadmaps for. The school should be talking to them, but a lot of times the school doesn't talk to them until their child turns 14 or 15, which is where you were saying the teenager, because that's when the transition planning comes in, when the child hits 13, 14 years old. But they should be looking at, am I signed up for the Medicaid waiver? Do I know what services the Medicaid waiver is going to provide? Have I started interviewing providers? And I want families doing that long before senior year in high school or 2021 when they're getting relief school, because that doesn't give you any time to process everything that you're taking in. I would like you to, when your child hits entering high school, I would love for you to start looking for transition fairs or resource fairs or whatever they're called in your state, to go and meet these different agencies and learn what they do and get tours of them and see if they'd be a good fit for your child. I would also love for you to talk to your state's Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. It's going to be called different things in different states, but every state has a department that handles voc rehab. Mm-hmm. And that's to help your child get ready to have a job. So that's probably where I'd start.
Let's back up just a little bit and talk about, what is the Medicaid waiver? And where does somebody go to apply for it?
The first part's an easier answer than the second part. The Medicaid waiver is, it's designed to allow families to waive the right for their child to be in an institution. historically, when you had a child with disabilities, they would be institutionalized. They would be, put away and cared for, out of sight, out of mind. And the idea is it is less expensive for states to allow you to receive care on your own in your own environment through a waiver, through a Medicaid waiver, the home and community-based services waiver. There's a lot of other waivers, but this is one. And it pays for several different types of services. What your child will qualify for will depend on the extent of your child's disability. And everything I'm talking about is for developmental disabilities. Physical disabilities, you may get something if they also have developmental disability like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, anything like that. But if it's, in air quotes, just a physical disability, then there's not necessarily going to be any services. So the services Medicaid pays for are going to include residential services, giving the person a place to live safely. It's important to note that Medicaid does not pay for rent or a mortgage. What it does is it pays for staffing to have somebody be, there to help the individual live on their own, in air quotes. I mean, they have staff, but they're not living with mom and dad. It provides for personal supports. That's the daily activities, the activities of daily living you and I do. And it's also brushing your teeth, cooking meals, grocery shopping, just a little thing, vacuuming, little things that you kind of take for granted, I think. Community supports, getting out into the community, getting to know the community, volunteering. They don't want you, if you can't work because your disability limits your ability to work, they don't want you in the house 24 hours a day. At least 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, they want you out in the community participating in whatever that means for you to give you a very rich life. And that can be different things for different people. It could be gardening, it could be volunteering, whatever. And then the last one is vocational supports, which shouldn't be confused with voc rehab. Vocational supports are ongoing supports to help somebody find a job, keep a job. It could be a job coach, it could be transportation to and from work, it could be training. And where it makes a difference from voc rehab is a whole different agency. And so it's not paid for by Medicaid, it's paid out of a different pool of funds. And voc rehab is available for anybody with any type of disability or mental health or anything else. It's also short term. Voc rehab is historically going to be 6 months or less. As soon as you get a job, they're going to phase out. When you have vocational supports from a Medicaid waiver, it will pay for as long as you need them. Those are the 4 different services that Medicaid pays for. Now, where you go to get them is going to depend on the state that you live in. Every state has a different agency. Some states, like Connecticut, will have you go to 2 different agencies depending on the diagnosis. And after going through and mapping out all the states, I can tell you, unfortunately, not all of them, but several of the states are very hard to figure out. I mean, there were a couple states, it took me about an hour and a half, 2 hours to figure out where I was supposed to go to apply for a Medicaid waiver.
Wow. Thank you very much for giving that information. That was a lot of information, but I think, I was jotting down what you were saying to see if we had a nice, clear and concise package. And, I think you kind of give a really nice roadmap for any parent who might need some assistance with this process. What are some other things that parents of adult children should be thinking about?
I think it's probably every parent hears it, but it doesn't mean it's not something they shouldn't be thinking about. They may want to look at getting a special needs trust. I don't want to say everybody automatically needs a special needs trust, but they may want to consider getting one. The reason I don't want you running out and talking to a lawyer right away is they're expensive, $4,000 to $6,000. And that's before guardianship, which is another conversation you need to be having. Or conservatorship if you're in California. So special needs trusts are vehicles where you can put money to allow your child to keep whatever means tested benefits they're entitled to. That's supplemental security income, that's food stamps or SNAP, could be a housing voucher, any type of public benefit that has limits on how much money the individual is allowed to have in their name. The So that's what a special needs trust is for. And then with guardianship, if your child, I'm struggling here because I want to make sure I'm very clear on how I say this. A lot of schools may tell you you need to be your child's guardian, or you may feel like you need to be your child's guardian because you don't think they're going to make very good decisions, or you're afraid they're going to get taken advantage of. I'm going to push back on that. And I want you to think about what you were like when you're 18 to 24 years old, or a little older, maybe even right now. Have you ever been taken advantage of? Have you ever made a crappy decision? Have you ever said, man, I really wish I hadn't done that? If you're answering no, I want to meet you. But, because that's not reality, right? We all make crappy decisions. We all get taken advantage of to some degree, or that's how we learn. The deciding factor should be if there's a neuropsychological reason why your child wouldn't be able to learn from these things, or if there's, my son has an intellectual disability. He's got some severe challenges. I'm his legal guardian right now. My goal is to get him to a place where I have enough supports in place that I can remove that guardianship and let him go on his own. And it's not because I'm afraid of somebody stealing his money by telling him, hey, give me your ATM card. It's because when I take him to the doctor and when I'm trying to have a discussion with the doctor and my son involved, he's not engaged. A couple of years ago, he had a rod put in his chest, which is a pretty invasive surgery, to push his sternum away from his heart and lungs. I really tried to keep him involved in this meeting, and all he could say was yes, 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 because he wanted to get out of the room. That is why I'm his guardian, because I'm concerned that he doesn't have the capability to ask the right questions, or even engage with the people who are trying to act on his behalf. Supported decision making is this new model where you'll build a team of people around the individual with a disability, and they're going to help them make a decision. The challenge with that in my son is he doesn't communicate with anybody. He doesn't want to be involved in the decision. And that's concerning. So that's the kind of thing I want you thinking about when you're going for guardianship. Don't say, oh, my child has intellectual disability, I've got to be their guardian. Or, oh, my child's got Down syndrome, I got to be their guardian. Or, oh, my child's nonverbal, I have to be their guardian. Now, all of those things, they're more nuanced. If your child's nonverbal, do they use a device to communicate? Can they communicate what they need if you were to give them the right device and show them how to use it? Does that make sense, Fazia?
It makes a lot of sense. You're looking for the least restrictive environment for your child, and you want them to be as independent as possible so that they can have the richest life they can have. So I completely understand what you're saying. I mean, I'm listening to this, and as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking of clients that I've had in the past, and even currently, who have talked to me about the possibilities of powers of attorney, guardianship, whatever. And my recommendation is, if you have a good relationship with your child, then go to the appointments with them, be that support, but don't take away their decision making. I think there's something to be said for having that decision making ability. When I see people that they do it out of love, it's completely out of love. It's like, well, I'll be your guardian and I'll take care of all your needs, and they do it out of love, but what they're doing is taking away the self-esteem and the confidence as well. And in order to be happy, healthy human beings, we need our confidence, we need our self-esteem, and we need it to be intact. So I completely understand. And as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I thought what you did was great. Your goal is to ultimately be out of that guardianship role, which, I think is the best decision for any parent to have, is to ultimately have your child be as independent as possible. So I think that's fantastic. No, it made a lot of sense to me. Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you sharing your personal story, because well, you and I talked about this before we started the recording. Everybody on this planet has something. We all have a story. We all have challenges. And, some of us are just a little bit braver than others and willing to share those challenges. But I think if we all shared our story, we would be in awe of how many people we interact with on a daily basis that truly have extraordinary lives and extraordinary challenges. You just don't know what they're going through because we don't talk about it in a professional setting.
Right. Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what are some other common discussion points with families. What are some other common discussion points that you have with families that you work with, and recommendations that you might give them?
Some of them are about who to work with, other professionals that they should be working with. There will be times where I might recommend a financial advisor. The challenge with financial advisors is making sure that you find one that not only gets you, but you'd be a good client for them. So a lot of financial advisors, well, let me back up. Financial advisors, there's a lot of different that's a broad label for a lot of different types of people. You have an insurance agent who sells insurance, and that's how they get paid. That does not make them automatically evil, because there are a lot of insurance agents out there who do an amazing job for their clients, and they're going to sell permanent insurance and disability insurance, and that's how they make their money.
Right.
Again, that doesn't make them evil. It's what they do. There's going to be financial advisors who manage assets, meaning they want to manage your investments, and they're going to have a meeting with you. They'll often give that. So insurance agents and these financial advisors who manage investments will often give you that first meeting for free, because they're looking for either selling you insurance on the back end and getting paid for their time that way, or taking over your investments and managing your money and getting paid that way. Again, neither one of these models is evil. It's just important to know how they get paid. And the more forthcoming they are, the more likely I am to trust them. And then you have fee-only financial advisors who they charge a flat fee for working with them. They, just like an attorney does. The turnoff from that is they could be very expensive. They could be charging $5,000-$6,000. I mean, when I was a financial planner, that's what I was charging, about $5,000. And you got what you paid for. I mean, you would go through, you would have 2, 3, 4 meetings. They would give you a full roadmap of what you need, everything laid out. They might give all these other recommendations. And then there's some that'll do some combination thereof. Maybe they'll charge a lower fee, but they want to manage your money. They want to sell you insurance. I'm getting to all of that because there's a time where you do need to work with an advisor. You should not try to figure out how much life insurance you need to fund your child's lifetime on your own. That is, it's super complicated, and it can be very easy, speaking as a dad, to come up with all kinds of reasons why you want to lower that death benefit, because it's going to, in the short run, it's going to lower your premium payments. And a lot of times that's how we make our decisions, is how much money is it costing us now, and not what's the long-term benefit. But you want to work with a financial advisor who can take into account Social Security benefits. And this is where you're going to want not just Social Security retirement, but also the disabled adult child benefit. And if your financial advisor doesn't know that, or if you don't want a financial advisor, I've helped clients do this where, okay, how much life insurance do you need? Let's figure it out. I've got a calculator that somebody else built. I will do the calculator with them. And then I'll refer them to an insurance broker that I know. And I'll say, hey, so-and-so, this is so-and-so, this is what they're looking for. I don't know what the right product is, but this is the amount of death benefit they need. And I know that broker well enough, she's not going to upsell them. She's going to give them exactly what the death benefit is, but she's going to talk to them about what the right product is. That's just not my role.
Right. Because you definitely need the right product.
Right. Or I'll go to an advisor I know who has a lot of experience in working with families with disabilities. And I'll say, hey, this family has a lot going on, a lot more than I'm qualified to do, because I'm not a financial planner anymore. They've got, you've got one who's got maybe dad's got a federal retirement, maybe mom's a school teacher going to get a pension, or maybe there's military, there's just a lot of different moving parts financially. then I'm going to want to introduce them to a financial advisor that I know and say, hey, I really think that you would benefit from working with this person. You don't have to have them manage your money. I think it would make sense if you have assets over $500,000 or more. I think it's, the more you can get yourself out of it, the safer you are in the long run, because you have that third person, that impartial point of view saying, whoa, I'm not telling you not to do this. Let's just kind of talk it through. And that's,
just to make sure it's the best decision.
Right. And then that you're not making this emotional response. A classic example is markets are going down. Oh crap, let's pull our money out. Right.
I don't even look at my account. I don't even look. I can't.
Right.
It's too tempting to pull things out if you start looking when things go down.
Right. And with the right advisor, they're going to explain, well, we moved your money into a more conservative allocation because we knew that you get kind of antsy, or you're getting closer to retirement. Or they might tell you, yeah, markets are going down. That just means it's on sale right now. We need to buy because you've got 20, 30 years before you need the money. Don't worry about it. Right. And that's where the advisor can come in and help you. And
I love that. It's on sale. I love that.
And where they can help you with your child is when they're figuring out how much, and this is what I do if you're not working with an advisor, if your child is getting SSI and might qualify for the disabled adult child benefit, that means the child's going to get 50% of your Social Security when you retire, 75% when you die. So using real numbers, this year, SSI is $841 a month. Not a lot of money to get you to support your child. And if that's all your child was going to get for their lifetime, if you wanted, so I go by how much money I wanted to leave my child $5,000 a month when I died. And again, I use my example because it's just easier than making stuff up and trying to remember what I said. So I wanted to leave him $5,000 a month. He's going to get 55% of my pension, which is about $2,500 a month. So right there, half of what I wanted to leave him is taken care of, right? And then he's going to get my Social Security, and let's say that's going to be another $1,500 ballpark. I don't know what it'll be. I'm self-employed, so you know how that is. So that's $4,000 a month that he's getting before taxes, right? So I wanted to leave him life insurance, and because when I first set this all up, the pension wasn't available. So I went out and I bought a $1 million policy, because if you do a 3% drawdown of $1 million a year, that's $30,000 a year, right? Which works out to be about $1,500 a month, I think. So my plan was to originally do a 4% drawdown, because I want, he doesn't need to leave anything after he's gone. So that's 4% of $1 million, $40,000 a year, worked out to be, whatever it works out, a little over $3,000 a month. I think it's 3,500, but math isn't my strong suit when I'm doing this. But the bottom line is I had the money set up there to where now he would have enough money between Social Security and my life insurance, and now the pension, to give him a very rich life if he can't get a job. And I want families to have that same idea. What's the right amount, should they have?
Exactly. What about, now I've heard the Social Security is going bankrupt in like 9 years or whatever. What do you recommend people do about that? I mean, is that something they should be concerned about? Is that a concern, or is that not a concern?
I don't think it's a concern. Old people vote, and we're never not going to have people working and paying into the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you might, if you're planning, maybe you plan to get 75% of your benefit instead of 100% of the benefit that they're telling you. Or maybe you plan on not being able to touch it until 66 instead of 62. I mean, right now, the earliest you can take it is 62. They push that back, and you're going to extend the amount of money that you have available in the trust fund.
Right.
So I'm not worried about Social Security. It's always going to be there.
But I think it's a good conversation to have because, we get so much information from different sources that tell us, oh, everything's going to be fine, or no, it's not, or, and I get parents all the time that say, well, I don't know if I can count on Social Security. But you're saying,
but if you can't count on it, that's all the more reason to get more life insurance.
Right.
And it goes back
plan
to
ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Plan accordingly. So if you don't want to plan on Social Security being part of your child's benefits, then
expect
make sure
to
you have
pay
enough.
more. Yeah, expect to pay more for life. And the younger you get your life insurance, the cheaper it's going to be.
Yeah. And then that way, if they do get the Social Security, it's just a bonus. It's a nice extra cash coming in.
Exactly.
So is there we've covered a lot, and I really appreciate you sharing so much information, especially so much of your personal information. Thank you for that. Are there any other bits of advice that you would have for parents before we end our conversation today? Any last bits of wisdom?
Stay off of social media.
Why is that?
So let me be a little less flippant. Be careful about the social media you consume.
Okay.
I left several Facebook groups because they're just very negative, and and maybe it's just me, but it seems like it's easy to fall into the trap of getting on the bandwagon, whether it's for good or bad. I'd much rather get on the bandwagon with people that are upbeat, positive, not Pollyanna-ish, but acknowledging, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's going to get better. Instead of getting on the bandwagon of, oh, my life sucks, everything sucks, everybody's out to get me. But it feels, and I'm maybe it's just me, Fuzzy, but I feel like the more I'm around that, the more I start to think negatively.
Well, you know what? I actually agree with you. I use social media for my business. I do. But I personally don't go on there anymore. I might go on there maybe once a month to make 1 or 2 comments, or maybe read some of the comments that are there, just so that I'm somewhat aware of what my intern has posted on there. But for the most part, I don't really do anything on social media anymore. I think I'm a little bit more involved on LinkedIn than maybe anything else, and primarily because LinkedIn is professional. And so that's where I can get people from my radio show to be a guest on the show, or maybe write an article for me. But for the most part, I think of social media as a directory. When my kids were younger, they wanted to be on social media. So I said, okay, you can be on social media, but I have to be on that account. Like, I have to see everything you're posting, and I have to have access to all of your communications. And my kids were fine with that. And when they went off to college, they wanted to close it off. And my recommendation was, don't close the account. Don't participate, don't engage, but don't close it, because it's a directory. Okay. You are in contact with so many people on there. And if you close your account, you lose that connection. And at some point in the future, you may want to send them a message or communicate with them. And the reason why I say that is because when I was in high school and I left, I didn't have contact with anybody I went to high school with again until social media came into play. And, I'm in contact with a few people that I went to high school with, and it's been nice. So I think it's a really nice way to stay connected long-term. It is not something I recommend anybody use on a daily basis, or even a weekly basis for that matter. But I think once in a great while to go look at pictures of what your cousin in Berlin put on social media, great. It's a way for me to stay connected with family across the world. It's a great way for me to maybe stay in contact with people that maybe I wouldn't have stayed in contact with otherwise. But my social media that's for my personal life and my business are completely different. My personal life, I have, I think, 127 people on there. Is that all the people I know? Probably not. My business is closer to 4,000. Do I know those people? No. And yet I'm really picky about who I let on there. I actually look at every single person before I click that yes button, because I don't want drama. I don't want inappropriate behavior. There's certain things that if somebody misbehaves, they're gone. So I think it's really important to gauge that social media and use it appropriately.
That's really well said. I mean, I do have a Facebook account. I think I have 150 friends, but it's most of the people I served with in the Navy. Like you said, it's a good way to keep in touch with them. When I first started, as a financial advisor, I was told get in all the Facebook groups, and it was toxic for me. I didn't want to be around it. And I am much more active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I use a tool where I can post. So you'll see posts from me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But the only thing I really go and read and actually participate with is LinkedIn, because, like you said, it's
Yeah.
very professional. I haven't seen too much drama there. Maybe it's just because I'm not looking for it. But
No, I just don't think there's as much there. So I mean, would you recommend that maybe parents stick to uh, like a group that doesn't have drama? Or are there particular groups that you know of that are more appropriate?
I don't know
No.
any groups. I feel like I belong under a rock sometimes, because people are like, "What do you think of TikTok?" I'm like, "Huh?"
What's
I have
that?
no idea. Or Instagram stories, or I'm like, dude, I don't even know. I mean,
Yeah, I have somebody that runs all my social media for me, so I don't go on there at all. It's very time consuming, but I think if you have a recommendation for a group, I mean, any parent who gets a recommendation, or if you've started a group and you feel like it's a good fit for, a particular group of people, then I have no problem with it. As long as that drama's not there, why not? You have support. You have a built-in support system that you can join whenever you want. And so it can have its benefits, I think.
yeah, there's two groups of that I know. I personally know the people that started them. One is Advocates in Education, and that was started by Stephanie Knapp, an education advocate. And I don't think she'd be the type that would allow drama. And the other one is the official A Mother's Rest, and that's really blown up. A Mother's Rest is a nonprofit that offers respite weekends around the country by partnering with bed and breakfasts around the country. And it's not free, but it's lower expensive for 4 or 5 moms to get together into a bed and breakfast for the weekend.
Love
And
it.
yeah, it's a great organization.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for being on the summit, and hopefully we can get you to come on again sometime.
Thank you, Fazia. I appreciate it. This has been awesome.